Hi guys, welcome to episode number 51. The reason I do that pause, it won't actually sound like a pause on the podcast.
Yeah.
Since I've updated it,
Yeah.
when you press record, it takes a second.
It fucks up with mine, isn't it?
Yeah,
A few times, I've
yeah.
noticed that. So just
Because you go straight in.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to figure out what that was. So it felt like a pause to me and you, but it won't have felt
people
like a
was
pause
like,
to the other people.
already going down to chatting pure
Yeah.
shit that
So-
we don't care about.
So that's why I held that pause,
Yeah.
but the people listening won't know that.
So that's
Hopefully,
a bit of information for everyone.
bit of information. Production information.
Production information.
Episode 51, which is actually our year anniversary, mate. Because
Fucking hell, well done, mate. Didn't know that.
we missed one, didn't we? We missed
Yeah.
one between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah,
So
yeah, of course,
technically, it's the 52nd week,
Oh yeah.
which is a year. So it's our year anniversary. Let's feel about that.
It's gone quick, isn't it? I
That's-
think
that's-
that's, yeah,
yeah,
we hadn't really
yeah,
thought about
that's
it.
it.
Just when you're in the zone with something and just enjoying the process of it, I suppose you're not counting down the weeks or thinking how much of it, you're just in it. And something we'll talk about today, actually, being in the zone.
We haven't been.
But we will get there in our conversation.
We will.
But yeah, I've really enjoyed doing the podcast.
Yeah, so have
far,
I, yeah. So have I. We're just discussing my coffee.
We were, yeah.
Yeah, not sure about the new coffee machine.
He fucked up, didn't he, mate?
Yeah, it rattles around, doesn't it?
Blaming the missus, aren't you, though?
Well, she bought it.
Copped out,
She
taking
reviewed it.
any responsibility.
But it's just... well, you just felt the quality of the thing, didn't you?
Yeah,
And it's not great, was it?
no.
No.
They do say buy cheap, buy twice.
Yeah, they do. This might be cheap by thrice, mate. So you have to fucking have a look at that.
Yeah. It's a
And
mistake
not-
I've made before in life, mate.
Oh, it's annoying.
That's a good deal, that.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, I know it's a good deal. It's total shit.
Well,
That's
see,
not a
I
good
don't... The missus shops like that. I don't
Yeah.
shop like that.
deal." No.
You know that confusion between value and price? So, I got really good value for that. What? Because it was cheap. Yeah, but if you got cheap and it's shit, that's not good value. That's about right. You paid fuck all and got fuck all. So, the value is you getting what you want out of that. Is it good quality? And then what's the price?
It's a fair exchange, isn't it?
It is,
We could bring us
exactly.
back into personal training, couldn't
Easy.
we, which we always like to.
Yeah.
It is that fair exchange, isn't it? Of, well, this is the value of something. In this case, the coach.
Yeah.
Does the coach see their value, and is the prices representing the value that they offer, and our clients getting that value? And then there's a fair exchange, isn't there, of money for services, or in this case, money for a certain product. You don't mind paying more money for your coffee machine
No.
if you're getting a good quality.
Yeah.
You feel like because you feel like you're more ripped off by paying less money.
Yeah.
By getting shit quality.
Yeah.
Don't you really?
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to feel the other way around. This is way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Fuming, can you imagine? With coaches, actually, I find that because quite often people charge less than they're worth. You obviously get a lot of people that come through and try and maybe charge more, but you see a lot of people, a lot of trainers that are worried about putting their prices up or don't put their prices up. Definitely falling that trap myself. But you need to charge your value. And it's interesting because if you haven't put your price up for a while, but you need to put your price up and a client drops off, then maybe they didn't value you as much as you thought they did, because the second that it's gone up by £5 an hour, they don't think it's worth that. So it's either just a disagreement on value, because we don't all value things the same, or maybe they didn't value your service as much as you thought they did. They were just getting a cheap service, so kept it ticking over.
Yeah, I think putting your prices up as a trainer is probably one of the most nerve-wracking things you can do.
Definitely is.
Because you're full of this self-doubt, you're
Yeah.
full of this, am I worth this? What will my clients think? And most of the time, from my experience, I've had to do it many times throughout the years, it goes a lot better than my emotional brain likes to think it
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
Not always, there's been a few instances throughout the years where it hasn't gone smoothly, but majority of the time, if I'm honest, it's been alright.
Yeah,
And most
yeah.
people have gone, yeah, cool, James, understand that, great. It's all okay, but I think we build up in our brains, don't we? And we give ourselves this self-doubt and these kind of emotional narratives that aren't really a reflection of what's going on, and then we don't do it, and then we get a bit of resentment of
Yeah.
like, well, I think I'm worth a little bit more, and maybe other people are charging more, but I feel like I can't.
Yeah.
And it's breaking down that kind of emotional barrier, essentially, I think.
You know, where you have those conversations in your head with the other person.
Yeah.
They're not there.
Yeah.
And you're like, they've in your head, they've reacted negatively, and you
Yeah.
start kicking off.
Yeah.
After, almost like you play the whole scenario, don't you? About what do you mean you don't see my value and all this sort of stuff. And it's a conversation that never happened. And then you react emotionally to a conversation that hasn't fucking happened. It's amazing, isn't it? What was I listening to recently? I was listening to a podcast about this recently. Oh, it was talking about a lot. Stephen Bartlett. He had the Chimp Paradox Professor Stephen Peters on, and he was talking about that and those conversations that you have that haven't actually happened, and then you get this emotional attachment to a person
Yeah.
who's never actually said what you're saying you think they might say. Hopefully it makes sense, but you
It
do that
does.
all the time,
And
don't
also
you?
you're going to get, because if you become fused and connected with those thoughts,
Yeah.
your body doesn't know the difference between that being reality and not.
Yeah.
So you're getting those actual emotions and those stress responses, that cortisol release, all that, as if it's actually happening.
Yeah.
It's difficult when you're in it though. It's hard to get out of it.
is.
Sometimes it helps actually then go to speak to that person or speak to that client. I've had it with even friends before where I've built something in my head and I'm chatting to them thinking, I have to come up with a total irrational narrative into what I thought was going on, and actually because I was maybe lacking sleep, tired, stressed, whatever, getting more emotional about it, and then logically what's really going on is totally different to what I thought was going on emotionally. So we're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
It's part of being human, I think, but having some awareness of it and try not to let your behaviours be altered through those emotions. I think that's the biggest thing. So in this context, we think about putting up prices. If you're getting stuck by those emotions, you're never going to put up your prices, because what will happen is there'll be such a stress response to those thoughts that becomes so uncomfortable. You'll then come up with a story, a logical narrative as to why you shouldn't put your prices up. So you never do, and that you convince yourself into why you can't. There's a recession. My clients wouldn't pay the money, etc., etc. And there might be some elements of truth there as well.
Yeah.
But that narrative will stop you behaving, or in this case, we're talking about moving forward in a positive direction, which, we're talking about finances here, but that is one example of progression in life, isn't it? And our minds can hold us back. It is our minds that hold us back every time.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, certainly that I've battled with over the years in terms of just actually having that conversation. And I have done it, but like you said, and 9 times out of 10, as you say, the conversation goes well. I also think that the important thing is that you're comfortable with the new price, so that you can say it with confidence. You don't. Sometimes you think, I don't know whether people have had this in their career, where you almost say it a bit sort of, I'm sort of 60 quid or whatever. You're almost carrying away. Whereas if you're confident that you're charging a fair value, a fair exchange, as you said, I feel I'm worth this, and looking at the marketplace, I would say that's a fair value from your point of view. Then you say it far more confidently than you do if you say, someone tells you should put your price up, but you don't really have the confidence or think you should be. I think it's got to come from within.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before about really seeing your value as a person and as a coach. What's the value you have? How good are you at coaching? Let's think about the qualifications you've done.
Yeah.
How much you've invested in your education, the time and energy you put into delivering good sessions, the relationships you've built, the experience you've got, the wisdom you've got. Look at all that and be honest and go, well, actually, you know what? Maybe I'm not ready to put the price up. Maybe I do need to do a little bit more work or get some better results. That's okay, but ask yourself the question. But I think often people don't see their value, if I'm honest. I think that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, most of the time it's that way around.
Most of the time they're not really seeing the value. Do you know the things you are offering? As coaches, we think the default thing is, I must learn everything about everything. Until I do, I'm just not worth an extra $5 an hour. You're like, what's the things you're currently doing well?
Yeah.
And often there's a lot more than what trainers realise. And I've been guilty of it, not seeing what I'm doing well. And I'm actually going, hang on, that session went really well for these reasons, and maybe other reasons that I want to grow and develop in. But I don't think we connect with that enough as personal trainers. And we can always develop and grow and improve. But let's also think about things that we're doing well. And that can build our confidence up. That can bring our self-esteem up a little bit. And then we feel like we deserve more money, or we're just worth more. We feel like we hold more value.
Was that having to learn everything? I can't remember who did the quote. I'm sure it was a businessman. He talks about how people overestimate what they can achieve in a year, but underestimate what they can achieve in a decade. And it's that idea around, if you just start consistently doing something, you will improve. Maybe at the start we overestimate. I've done it before, where I thought I'm going to do a load of nutrition, load of mechanics, load of anatomy and a load of pain study all this year. I said, well, fucking hell, that's a lot to learn in a year. Even if you do it quarter by quarter, that's a lot. That's not that much time. But if I study each of these things consistently over a period of a decade, then actually at the end of that decade, I'm going to have some really good knowledge based on that. And I think sometimes people, when they come to look at studying, and it's going to link into actually what we're going to talk about today, but also your value, I don't think it's what you know necessarily. Well, it is to a certain point. It's the fact that you're continually progressing yourself, that you're on that journey, that you're not just stopped. Because I've seen this as well. Trainers think they've completed certain subjects, just right, I've studied that, I've completed it, and off they go. So I think if you're on a continual journey to improve, well, there's a value link to that. If you're continually improving in all directions, then your value is equivalently going up, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've mentioned before about how you want to improve as well. You know, it's not about trying to improve in every single area. There might be certain areas which you might go, I'm quite content with my knowledge now, and you might dip your toe in a little bit. Like for me, let's say nutrition, I studied it loads early on and still dip my toe in and listen to some nutritional podcasts, but not as much time into it as I used to. But I'll develop in other areas that I feel quite aligned with. I just think it's really easy to get clouded by, as I mentioned, your emotions, or get clouded by where you're not at and what you're not doing well at, and sort of judge yourself as a coach.
Yeah.
And we get clouded through that judgment and clouded through that comparison. I think we all do it, and that can really hold us back. And what we're trying to do with coaches is help support them to grow and develop ultimately. And I think a lot of that starts with your personal development as well. I think if you're growing personally and you're aware of some of these emotional pieces and some of the self-worth pieces and stuff, I think that allows you to push yourself and challenge yourself, so you can really feel that worth. It's not just about a bit of paper, is it, telling you you've got that qualification. You need to feel it, and feeling it comes through developing yourself as a person as much as your academic education.
Yeah. Don't know how we've gone to that. Oh, my coffee machine.
Yeah, amazing.
I think it tastes better as I've gone through that coffee, actually.
It's like wine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a little sip, you're like, oh, is it all right? And you get half a bottle and smash it down here.
It's still shit. It's just pissing me off as I look at it.
Yeah, I can see that. You're really frustrated with it.
Right.
Bring us in then. This does kind of link into today's podcast, where we're thinking about progressing in our lives, progressing in our career, delivering good service. A really important thing is our ability to be able to focus and to really kind of put the energy into the right areas, but also kind of be very aware of how distracted we often are. And I've been quite motivated to kind of research this subject a little bit more recently, because I've felt myself getting a bit more distracted with social media and more distracted with things that are going on in my environment. And I feel at times it's held my growth back a little bit. So a book I've been starting to listen to is called Stolen Focus. I'm going to try and pronounce the author's name. My dyslexic brain will fuck it up. Johan Yari, I think that's it. But anyway, Stolen Focus is the book. And some of these ideas that I'm going to be talking about in today's podcast is sort of paraphrased and pulled from that book. But if you're listening to this podcast now, I want you to think about how often you are distracted, or how often do you find you really are in that deep level of focus. Some people have called it flow before, where you're really fully engaged. And I'm going to discuss some points in a bit on things that we can do to maybe develop our ability to become more focused. And also I'm going to talk about today, what is the cost of not being focused and more distracted. Before I go down that, mate, is it something that you can relate to?
Yeah, no, probably most people can, I would imagine. It's that, and you also then tell yourself a narrative that you can't be focused. So I would use Rick Shields. So Rick Shields does a lot of golf videos, and I quite enjoy watching them in my free time. And when I watch them, I'm not distracted by anything, and I'm fully focused. And then I'll pick up my book, not my book that I read in the evening, but say a book for work, be it, you know, what the ones I've done recently, books on stress or sleep, or Kapanji, which is anatomy. And all of a sudden I can't focus and I find myself distracted. So it's not the point that I can't focus, it's the point that I'm really interested in that moment, so I can focus. It's just being able to do it when you want to. And I suppose the biggest thing for me is removing, which I know you've mentioned to me before we're going on air, but it's something that I have to do, is remove distraction. Because it's too easy, isn't it, to be, say, for me, reading a book and then like 30 seconds later grabbing for your phone. You know, that sort of stuff. But if my phone's not there, and I remove as many distractions as possible, it allows me to get into the book. And weirdly enough, once I give it enough time, I will get into it.
Yeah.
So once I've removed those distractions, I give it sort of a few minutes, I start reading, then I get into it, my brain starts to focus.
Yeah.
But sometimes for me, what it will take is 2 or 3 minutes of removing distraction, and then I'll get into flow, you know, where I'm now reading it and I'm trying to absorb the information. Whereas something that I want to do straight away, I'm in straight away.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of layers to this, isn't there? And I think you're almost alluding to one part of this, which is being aware of our current state, we can all relate to times when we're tired, run down, not feeling particularly good. Maybe we need to be fair to ourselves. Now isn't the time for some deep thought. Maybe to actually even begin to become focused, we need to be in a reasonably relaxed state straight away.
What if you never are?
If you never...
What if you never are?
Never...
In a relaxed state.
Yeah.
So what if you're never in the mindset to be able to learn? Because I'm sure there'll be people on here that were like, well, I'm never in the mindset to learn.
But basically, there's a difference between being in the mindset to learn and being relaxed. I think you need to be relaxed to even begin to get in the mindset to learn. I think if it's hard to get in the mindset to learn when you're stressed. So again, there's different levels of relaxation, but just trying to create a little bit of space in your day, a little bit, to at least give yourself an opportunity. It's like talk about sleep, like give yourself an opportunity at least to do it. You can't guarantee what frame of mind or how motivated you're going to be, because some days you'll be more motivated than others, but at least carve out some space and go, right, this is some time I'm carving out for myself now to calm myself. And I tend to find once I've carved that space out and I go and listen to an audio book or a podcast, and I find because I've got that space carved out, I'm naturally a bit calmer. And as you said, I need to give myself time. I think in the first 10 minutes, my brain is all over the place. Yeah. And the longer I'm walking, the longer I'm listening, the more fine-tuned I'm getting into it. And then I do find that suddenly my brain starts to wake up a little bit, and I'm actually really absorbing information rather than just hearing the information.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a game changer, but I think we do need to carve out some space.
Yeah, I feel like I have to get past that couple of minutes. If I get past that couple of minutes, then I will get engaged.
Yeah.
And the opportunity is exactly right. It's that even giving yourself the opportunity to do it and create that consistency, and then not just... I suppose it's both sides. If you're really not... If you've got a real stressful situation on, then I personally, I'm sure for most... You can't concentrate. No. It's fucking waste of time. Yeah. So actually maybe there's time to step away. But not be too quick to blame that, and so you never really get going. Do you know what I mean? So create yourself the opportunity in terms of the time in order to do it, but then the time and opportunity within the moment to do it. So actually say, I'm going to give this 10, 15, 20 minutes. I'm not just going to go 2 minutes in, I'm too stressed, I'm not going to be able to do it. So you've got to try and give yourself the opportunity on both sides. Because most people say, and I have to pencil it into my week to read and study, because it's easy for it to get away from you.
Yeah.
And you're not getting paid for it. You will, because long term it'll increase your value that we were talking about at the start. But in the immediate term, this week, the mechanics videos I watch won't make me money now.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's easy to get distracted and just concentrate on stuff that makes you money now. But actually increasing your knowledge is going to make you it's going to improve your coaching, which is probably going to give you more clients through referrals. Plus you're going to feel an increase in your value. You're going to be able to help clients maybe deeper problems, which this isn't really on today's podcast, but we were talking at the start of air about clients where you're able to focus when they come to you with maybe more specific problems or problems outside the norm. So clients that have been injured or clients that have come back from surgery. You almost become more focused around those because there's something different to deal with, versus maybe the more general population client that you sort of deal with continually all the time.
Yeah, I mean that last point definitely links into a point I'm going to make later, mate. So you're right. I definitely think we need a bit of challenge to stimulate us and to get us focused, and I'll expand on that later. But I think what you're talking about there, mate, is it's easy to not make time for stuff. First of all, very easy, because our time will always get filled with something. We tend to fill our time with things that we either have to do or that make us feel good. So I have to work, cool, and what makes me feel good? Well, let's bring it back to social media. I'm sure we'll cover that a few times today. Those little dopamine hits you get on the reels makes you feel quite good in the moment. Yeah. To go and do something that could offer more value to you takes more effort, takes more focus. It doesn't always feel as good in the moment to really sit down, to really concentrate. You might feel a bit just not quite in the right zone. And we all need a bit of distraction, by the way. Yeah. I'm not saying you should have a life that never does any distraction and never go on Instagram reels, because we're going to, me included.
We put them up as well. We want people to watch ours.
We can put them up. And ours are brilliant.
I want people to watch my mechanics ones,
exactly. But we do. It's the world we live in, so we have to accept that. But I think we need to understand how the human brain works again, that we want this instant little dopamine hits. We don't always want to do something that's difficult in the moment, and to try to understand something that could give us a lot of fulfillment, could give us a lot of value for our career and our lives, it's often quite difficult, and as you alluded to, takes time as well. Yeah. It can take, me sometimes some of these books I'll listen to a couple of times. I have to be really patient. I'm probably not going to absorb all the information straight away. So I have to make the time, carve out the time, take notes, revisit it if I really want to get a depth of knowledge in that area. If I don't, then I'll say to myself, actually, my knowledge is quite surface level. I've got a bit of knowledge there, that's fine. If it's an area that I really care about, whether it's the mind or psychology or anything with health really, but definitely those areas, I'm going to have to say to myself, James, you're going to have to fucking put some effort into this.
Yeah.
That's going to be a bit uncomfortable, and it might mean making some sacrifices here and there. I have to admit that to myself if I want to grow and develop in the area.
Yeah. It's one of the things I talk to people about learning as well, and this is sort of links along the same lines with regards to books, is sometimes people put too much pressure on themselves, and I used to do this, to learn everything on the page. Yeah. And so actually it became overwhelming, because it's like we can't learn everything off that page and completely understand it literally from day one, minute one of reading it. It's going to take time to go through. So what I decided in the end to do was to actually just try and understand what the page was trying to say to me as a whole, or what was the chapter, what's the principle I'm trying to draw out of this from a whole, what's going to be useful. And then next time I go back, I'll go slightly deeper with it, and then I'll go slightly deeper with it, and then on the third and fourth time you come back, you go slightly deeper. But trying to learn everything from a book the first time you read it is too much pressure on yourself. It becomes overwhelming, and it's paralysis through analysis, where you're just, because you're trying to consume the information, it's like, well, actually, let's just read the book. What's the chapter trying to say? What's the page trying to say as a whole? And then we can start to come back again and then delve a bit deeper and delve a bit deeper. Yeah. I think if you put too much pressure on yourself to learn everything first time, you'd almost just stop before you've even started.
Yeah, it becomes, it's because again that becomes so uncomfortable.
Yes.
That you don't do it, and we need the right level of challenge, the right level of discomfort. The right level of challenge is, I just want to try and absorb the basic theme of this.
Yes.
Entertain a little bit of it. I know it's going to take me months, and often we know this stuff takes years to really get into your head. So you take the pressure off yourself so it doesn't become too overwhelming. You set a realistic kind of outcome that you want from it. Then you're more likely to do it.
Yeah.
If you're like, right, I must learn everything in this, I must learn every sentence, absorb it all. The expectations are so high that you get put off even starting it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to this stuff as well, sometimes I'm just like, well, why don't I just start to read a page? And you know, it's like when you read a page, you read 2 pages and 3 and 4, or you spend 10 minutes listening to a podcast, and sometimes you're like, actually, half an hour's gone. But it's the initial mindset of, I'm going to listen to our podcast. No, that's too much for me.
Yeah.
If I get into it, I might do, but actually, just going to do 10 minutes. That's less overwhelming for me, so then I'm more likely to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like a chapter. Some of my books just set out to do a chapter, which quite often is only going to take 10-15 minutes, depending on the size of the book.
For you, mate.
Yeah. Well, some books are like never-ending chapters.
Where are you, James? I'm still in chapter 1, mate.
Yeah.
You've had the book for a year, mate. Yeah, I know. It's hard.
It's that but some books obviously massive chapters. But also, I don't put pressure on myself. It's like when I'm reading my fiction in the evening. You know, some people are like, I have to finish a chapter. It's like, actually, I'm getting tired. I won't finish the chapter. So again, you don't have that pressure. But that learning thing was one of the trainers that I mentor. We were talking about this as part of a nutritional course. She was like, I just can't get the molecular level of carbs to like sit in, and I'm really struggling with it. I was like, well, why do we need to? And she didn't. It was just about, yes, that's a part of the book, but let's understand carbs as a whole. Let's take away the applicable information. Yes, let's have an appreciation for that. And when you come back in your second and third time, then yeah, it might seem more relevant. But she got stuck there because she was trying to absorb it. It's like, you won't use that unless you're going to be, well, I can't even think, well, a nutritionist writing a nutritional course. As PTs, it can be interesting to know that, but how applicable is that for us to know for most of our clients? Not really. So let's not get stuck there when the book has so much more information to offer further through as well, with applicable information. And then if you've got a real passion and you want to know it, we come back and we go into it again. It's not one of those things that you have to get right first time. It's like a driving test. You take a driving test as many times as you want. With a book, you don't have to get it first time. And I changed the way I did books, because I used to stop and write notes as I went, and it just became so boring for me reading a book that I wanted to learn from, because I'd read and then I'd want to make notes, and then or like chapter by chapter. So I actually fell out my love of reading for books. So what I do now is the first time I just read them, because then I enjoy it, and then I can come back and I can make some notes if I feel I need to. But that works for me. For other people, maybe it does work better for them as they go page by page, note by note.
You mentioned about books. You mentioned fiction books.
Yeah.
How do you find they work for you? Because that came up a little bit in the book that I was reading.
Well, fiction's interesting because it sticks. You don't go with the mindset of thinking I have to remember this. You just go in the mindset of enjoying the story. So you put less pressure on yourself. So you remember the story. If you ask me about my book, I'll tell you about the story. But I'm not putting any pressure. I'm just enjoying it. Whereas when you sometimes, I find, if I'm reading a non-fiction, like I have to remember this, I have to understand what this book is trying to say, you put more pressure on yourself. And so sometimes that becomes more of an issue, which is why I tried to change my non-fiction to be more like my fiction. Stop taking notes every second. Stop trying to understand everything and just read the book. And then I can come back and write notes if I want to. Or I can write notes later on down the line from the stuff I've remembered. Yeah. But fiction's easy because you're not, as long as the story's good, you're not trying to remember, you're just enjoying.
Yeah, they talk quite a lot about... I've heard people talk about friction.
Friction. Ah, mate, mechanics.
Friction, there you go.
Mechanics podcast.
No, it's like a personalise that, mate. Fiction books, and it is something that I haven't really read a lot of, I must admit, but the book that I'm listening to at the moment, Stolen Focus, talks a little bit about how it can help people develop better understanding and empathy of people, because you become very attached to people's stories in the books and what's going on, and you can translate that. People have found, anyway, through research, from what I understand, is that translates into how people interact in their world as well, because hearing someone's story and what's going on with someone and their difficulties and their challenges, whether it's in a book, whether it's in a documentary, or with your clients, to really understand the story, as humans we like that, and we become so engaged and so focused because it, for a lot of us anyway, it really interests us to find out about other people. It's amazing how much we start to absorb that once we're really engaged with the person and less about just the kind of certain metrics. Because people, human beings aren't cars, are they? Yeah. They're not machines. They're people with stories and backgrounds, and it's interesting hearing you talk about the kind of fiction books and how you can become engaged in it and how you can get so attached to the story and how you remember more through that. And it's something that I think I need to do more of. I mean, I tend to do it more with people, I suppose, and books, but I definitely think reading more fiction books would probably help me, because I would start to just get different ways of thinking. I don't know if you found that, but it's just something that came up. I found that was really interesting, especially the empathy side of it. I thought was really fascinating. There's another side to it, which I'll flip the narrative in a second.
If you want to read a book called The Secret Keeper, it's a fiction book. It won a load of awards. I read it when I was on holiday last year. It was fucking brilliant. I was completely immersed in the world. And that's what a brilliant fiction book does to me. I'm immersed in it. I'm imagining it. I'm seeing the pictures. I feel like I know the people. And this one was travelling, not time travel. It was telling different parts of the life. So it went back to the war. Then it would come to modern day. It's brilliant. And there's a brilliant twist as well, which I'm not going to say in case people haven't read it or you want to read it.
Have you got it?
I think I do.
I think I do. Yeah, if I go on holiday, mate, I might.
It's either gone to a charity shop because we've both read it. If not, if it's in there, you can borrow it.
Sorted.
Because it's but I was completely immersed in it. It's been like for me when I was young. I say younger, fucking now. It's not bullshit. Harry Potter books.
I say younger.
When I was 34.
I fucking love Harry Potter now.
It's that's why a book's better than a film, because a book allows you to create the world yourself. Because they'll describe to you, and you imagine the people, and you imagine the characters, and you hear their stories. And when a story's told well, and a book's written well, it's completely immersive. I almost wouldn't want to see a film of The Secret Keeper, because it's probably one of my favourite fictional books. And the trouble is, sometimes then when a director comes along, and it's their view of it, which is different to your view of it, it doesn't live up to expectations, because you created your own world and your own pictures and things. So yeah, I find fiction. That's why now, I used to read non-fiction in the evening. I tend to read fiction now because I find it more relaxing. Yeah. Helps me get to sleep.
Yeah, and again, the better you sleep, the more focused you feel the following day.
But as I said, I'm putting less pressure on myself to be focused. Yeah. And funnily enough, I end up focusing more.
Yeah, you can't put too much pressure. Yeah. Just I think it's important to flip it from another perspective. When they're doing this research as well, they also asked, this is interesting, the people who read more fiction stuff seem to be more empathetic and understanding, but they did also go, but are just people who are naturally more empathetic and understanding reading the books.
Yeah.
And I like the way they question it both sides with the research. I thought it was a really clever way to to question it. I think the ultimate answer was probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
People who are naturally like that might be attracted to those types of books, but also by reading those books, it helps our personal growth.
Yeah.
I think it helps us become better people. I think actually from what I've understood there. I said personally, it's been more of how I've interacted with people. It's where I've got the value and the empathy from, becoming a bit more aware. But I think the book side was really interesting point to bring up. I also would want to just bring up some actual kind of things that can, and you've alluded to some already, Dan, that can help us focus more. Because a lot of people are like, okay, brilliant, we'll talk about focus, we'll probably talk about some of the costs to not focusing in a bit as well, but what the fuck do I need to do to become more focused? And again, we've alluded to some already. I think to really emphasise those points, and you mentioned it, Dan, which is try and clear distractions. And you mentioned that one earlier, didn't you?
Yeah, you're going to change the camera, aren't you? Is that what you... Yeah. It's I think that's the biggest thing for me. But I've also spoken about that in regards to if I want to watch a film or things, I really want to watch the football. I'll keep flicking at my phone, so I go and put my phone somewhere different. So you're giving yourself the best opportunity, especially initially if focus is something you struggle with, then initially give yourself the best opportunity by removing things that might help you stop focusing. So just get rid of phones. That's the beauty of a book. A book can't talk, as in nothing pops up in a book. Yeah. You don't suddenly see a message pop up or an Instagram thing pop up. It's just the words on the page. So there's not a distraction from within the book like there is with your phone. I try and remove, if I really want to get involved in something, I remove all distractions. So I'll go and put my phone, my laptop in a different room so that I'd actually have to get up and walk out, which is unlikely to happen. But if my phone's there, then I might start flicking it. So I think removing distraction. If distraction is something you struggle with, which we fucking all do probably, and focus is something you struggle with, then a starting point is to remove everything that distracts you.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about deep focus, our phone's the biggest one, aren't they? And I 100% agree with that.
And your fucking Apple Watch, if you're an Apple Watch wearer.
Yeah, this is why I've got my old
This is why got a Marathon and a Casio.
I've got a Casio, old school.
Mine's a Marathon.
No mucking about, proper retro. Always does to tell me the fucking time.
Time, date, stopwatch.
Stopwatch.
Sorted.
So you need, mate.
So you need in your life.
So we're on the same page with that. But our phones are obviously constant.
I actually do that sorry mate, it's just for focus within sessions. That's why I don't have an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Because I would be distracted.
Yeah.
I know I would. So like on my Fitbit, I had literally have counting steps, so I don't have my messages come up on it. So I don't have the Apple Watch because I know if messages were coming through, I just know I'd be distracted. So
if you listen to this, try and be aware of the things that are distracting you. And as a trainer, there will be things in your studio, in your gym, in your environment that probably are distracting you, and you can't necessarily get rid of all those things. I can't go to my gym saying, can everyone just leave the gym right now because you're distracting me?
Yeah.
It's up to me to develop the focus, and I really want to emphasise this point. This is a skill. The better I get at being distracted, the better I get at being distracted.
Yeah.
The better I get and the more focus I put into being focused, the better I get at being focused. And I don't think we see that enough because we're constantly being distracted by our phones and surface level kind of information. We're just getting better at that. And we're getting less good at being focused. And this has been studied as well. And it isn't just our phones, it isn't just the internet. It's actually been over decades of just having more access to information.
Yeah.
And because we've got more and more information as human beings, it's almost becoming a bit overwhelming. We're trying to make quicker judgments and find answers quicker. And then we're becoming less focused. So it is something that we are. I can't remember the stats now. How attention span is. Yeah, make them up. Fucking make up the stats.
Okay.
Where's it come from? The James Shibe world of stats. Don't ask for any references.
Just make them up.
But it's like down to seconds, isn't it? Like kids or adolescents, how long they can pay attention for now, as opposed to a few decades ago. It was, let's say for argument's sake, it's 4 seconds now. It used to be 8 seconds.
See, make them up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. James.
No one's going to check you.
Yeah, no one's going to check you. Believe me.
You've not seen some of the shit coming out on big podcasts, mate. Just make it up.
Some of the shit coming out must be made up. So I mean, we are all becoming more distractible, aren't we? Because that's a lot of
more
distracted.
Watch an adolescent not get distracted when they're gaming. So again, you come back to that point.
Well, this is one of my points I'm going to come to next.
They get distracted of stuff away from maybe that could be beneficial long term. But if you can concentrate now, video games, I know, having played them myself, there's a lot of shit going on. So someone might argue No, there's still, because you can still be distracted away from a game. So if they want to watch a game of football, or they want to watch or get on gaming, and that's not just adolescents anyway, that could be anyone that's gaming, perfectly capable of concentrating. But then put it something else. So is it our ability to concentrate, or is it our ability to concentrate on things, I don't know how to word this, that could be more beneficial, or stuff we just find boring, or...
And this is why this is such an important conversation.
Yeah.
It's probably a bit of both, isn't it? I think our skill for focusing is going downhill, but also what are the things why are we struggling to focus? Sometimes it's because you don't really give a shit about something. We can all relate to that. You know, if someone talks about a subject you have no interest in and you don't care about, it's very hard to be focused. And I think you were alluding to this earlier with your golf videos.
Yeah.
Because you want to get better at golf and you care about that, you're passionate about that. When you're listening to that information, you're really engaged and focused. So that's important, because I think if you're consuming something that's really important and meaningful to you, it could be any subject, it could be anything, you are more focused.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a book, whether it's a video, whether it's interaction with a certain individual. When you're with someone who you really care about, I think anyway, if I'm someone who I really care about, I'm going to be more focused with that person than if it's just a surface level relationship. But that depends on my state and the context, of course. But yeah, it's a question to ask ourselves. But we could also be areas that we care about, and we're still struggling to focus as well.
Yeah.
But if you don't get rid of distractions and you don't think about the things you really care about, you're never going to develop deep focus and flow.
Yeah.
It's got to be something you give a shit about, and it's got to be less amount of distractions as possible. And the last point is, it's probably got to be a little bit challenging. It's got to be, let's go back to as PTs working with clients. One reason that I've loved going down the rehab road is that it's giving me something to really get my teeth into and think, whoa, there's an injury now. I really need to think a bit deeper. I need to go to a slightly higher level of my thought process. That stimulated me, because someone's working with pain, and it kind of upregulates me a little bit to be a bit more switched on. I'm sure the guys listening can think of clients who maybe are a bit more challenging, or kind of exercises that they've got to refocus on, or exercises that are more challenging, so they become more focused, you become more engaged, because you kind of have to be, because it's the right level challenge.
That's where I come up with new exercises, because having mechanics knowledge means most exercises you're going to set up well for your clients, but it's when someone has pain or a niggle or something that doesn't quite work right for them, or there's asymmetry between one side and the other, or that's when I'm at my best in terms of creating an exercise for a reason, not just creating exercise for an exercise sake, but actually in the moment when it's like, oh, that didn't quite work for that person, or actually that looks a bit weird, or that didn't feel quite comfortable for them. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, and then you can apply your knowledge, the things you know, to actually help that person. Whereas creating an exercise just for the sake of creating an exercise is a little bit pointless. If you've got that reason there, it makes it fun. You are focused, it's fun, it's enjoyable, you come out of that session. I know I come out of sessions with people that either have or are injured, have been or are injured, have come out post-surgery and we're doing rehab. Something's come up out of somewhere, some pain or niggle. That's when I come out and I'm like, fuck me, I'm good. Yeah. Whereas the other times, fucking nailed all of that, but I'm thinking, and then I'm making lots of notes on their program, and we're going to try this next time. I had a client who had pain at 45-degree knee flexion. She's actually having a knee replacement soon. So it's like, right, where is this pain? Okay, well, we can work from, say, 90-degree knee flexion up to around about 45, and then we need to stop. And then just the other side of 45 to straight, we can work without pain. So now, for your quad extension, because we still want to keep the quad strong, especially going into a knee op, we're going to work them. Just this little bit in the middle where you're getting the pain, which is probably why you're having the knee op. We're going to take out. So that took some thought process, and we were playing with it and we were working with it. They see the value, not because, shit, I just got 3 less sets of quad extension done, but because you're playing around, and it's all about them, because they know you're creating an exercise now all around them and where they're feeling pain. They enjoy it. And that's where I come out of a session really having enjoyed it, but I've had to focus. Whereas if it's someone who, say, you know, we all had just general population clients, we're just trying to train, we're making sure they train to a good level, but their session is fairly similar every week, and just set some progressions. Maybe it's slightly hard to stay focused. Not that you don't, but you just don't get quite as much from it. You know, when someone's got a really good goal and they really progress, I find that really firing as well. So, but yeah, I see there's a guy called, Tom Purvis, the guy that started RTS. he says now on his website that he doesn't take any clients on unless they're basically fucked. So it's like they've got some sort of injury or they're old. Because I think he's probably just got to the point in his career, or he says he has, the point in his career where he only wants to take on what he feels are interesting cases. And probably if you've been in the industry 40 years, that's probably quite understandable, isn't it? If you get that person come along who just wants to do a general bit of training, you probably think, I don't know about that. But if you've got someone that's comes along really interesting, I think it's actually far more stimulating than just those everyday clients.
Yeah.
Which is not to downdo those everyday clients,
No.
because I still have plenty of them and you still get plenty out of conversations and understanding and then progressing.
Yeah.
But you just super focus on the ones that are a bit different.
Yeah, I suppose because you've got more knowledge, you're able to apply that and you're getting more excited. So if you didn't have the knowledge, the issue would be, the challenge would be too much. So you wouldn't be able to focus because you probably feel quite overwhelmed and quite stressed. Because you develop your knowledge on the body and the mechanics and exercise, you're now able to kind of, I use the word solve openly, but sort of solve their problems a little bit, help them move forward in a positive direction. And it's the same with me on the injury and the pain stuff as well, I can relate to. And just my knowledge on understanding people and psychology, I can now have better conversations, and I feel people interest me. People are complex and everyone's got challenges and issues in their life. And once you try and open up some of those conversations, and it doesn't happen with everyone, but when you do, I find that really excites me. So I'm like, oh, we're having a bit of an uncomfortable, difficult conversation that is challenging. That makes my brain, I'm like heightened up. It's not just a surface level conversation. The deeper ones, I'm like, God, I've walked out of that thinking, well, I've offered some value. I've really helped that client navigate the situation, but it was fucking hard. But the right level of hard, because I had the skills to be able to help that person. If I'd opened the door to something, I was like, shit, I'm well out my depth here. I'm not focused. I'm just thinking, fuck, how do I get myself shit? Yeah. So I think we need to upskill ourselves and try to realise how we can, going back to what we said right at the beginning today, of seeing our value and how we can help the people around us. But we have to have that skill set, don't we? Skill set of people, skill set of mechanics, linking back into our seminar.
Yeah.
Bullshit. That's right, doesn't it?
But I do think, because if you didn't upskill yourself, so you were literally doing the same thing for 40 years, literally the same thing, with the same clients, not maybe exactly the same clients, but so you never learn any more than you did from your day one PT, that'd be fucking boring, wouldn't it?
Been born after 4 years, little 40 years, mate. Yeah.
You wouldn't. Can you imagine how unstimulated? Is that the opposite of stimulated? Unstimulated?
Let's go for it.
Unstimulated. Imagine how unstimulating that would be on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Learning nothing, not progressing yourself, so you're just always dealing with the same issues over and over again. It's like, I do wonder if you're like a knee specialist or something, surgeon. So all you've done is knee surgery for 40 years. Is that still as fulfilling and as engaging? I suppose technology changes. I don't have the answer to this either, by the way.
No.
But I'm just thinking now. Well, one of the things that keeps me, and Paul spoke about this, I can't remember if we spoke about it on air or off air. I think it was when we were having a nice bit of steak, actually, mate.
Taking a few beers.
He was talking about, and he has spoken this on podcasts, so I'm not breaking the confidence, how before mechanics, he was actually getting a bit bored. Because he was doing the same thing, and all of a sudden, mechanics opened up his eyes to what else was going on in the gym and created something new for him to see and work with and understand. It's like with pain, like you were saying earlier, with pain. Once you started to understand pain and be able to work people in pain, it just gave you something new to focus on and understand. So I think that's cool. And also, when you start to see it compounding, so you might not see that in the first year, once you start to see it, like a year later, you feel really comfortable helping people with pain. And you're not going to feel comfortable straight away when you first start learning about it, but a year later you do, and that's where you start to see the rewards from it. And I think once you see the rewards from it, then it starts to gain momentum, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You start to see that work that you put in for a year is now starting to come to fruition. You start to gain momentum in wanting to now increase your levels all the time.
Yeah, it's like when a client starts to lose weight, isn't it?
Yeah.
You get that kind of. You start to feel like you're achieving something.
Yeah.
It becomes quite addictive, doesn't it? You're like, God, I'm getting better at this. I'm achieving, so I'm moving forward. And human beings find that addictive. It's nice to be in that kind of positive place. I suppose you get out what you put in, don't you? If you put more focus into something, the amount of value you're able to draw out of that is incredible. And when people feel a bit flat, because as you said, they're doing the same shit over and over again, feel a bit demotivated, don't feel particularly inspired, don't feel particularly fulfilled, lack some meaning, lack some purpose. which plenty of people do, and we can all go through times of our life where we can feel like that. It's really key to go, well, where am I focusing my energy? Am I really focusing my energy in some stuff? It's amazing what happens once you start to do that, how that starts to build you back up again, starts to motivate you, starts to inspire you, you start to offer value to others, you start to see your value. It's a fucking game changer, mate.
Yeah.
But it takes energy and effort to put into it. The difficult thing is when you feel fucking flat and demotivated, it's hard to get the energy to do those things. But breaking that loop, and if you're a trainer listening now and you do feel a bit flat, a little bit stuck, a little bit bored, trying to find a way to break that loop, and there's lots of ways you can. Once you're on that positive loop, it's a really good place to be. And you won't be around like that every month of the year, all year for your whole career. We'll go through ups and downs. But if you can be there 80% of the time, your career and your life will move in a positive direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that...
Yeah. I mean, there's some costs to not focusing.
So that, just to sum up that bit, we were talking about how you can get more focused, or the things, the practical application.
Yeah.
So we went removing distraction.
Yeah.
Finding something that you're interested and passionate about.
Yeah, so that's really important and meaningful to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And creating actually time and opportunity in order to do it. Was that on your notes? I know we spoke about that earlier.
Yeah.
But actually giving yourself
we spoke
time
about that earlier.
opportunity.
And also the other point was making it challenging enough.
Yes, that was
again, just challenging enough. It's kind of if you put like a climber, and let's say they were like a reasonable climber, and you said, right, I just need you to kind of climb over this gate. They'd be like, oh, cheers, James. They wouldn't need to focus on that.
Yeah.
If I said, right, go and climb fucking Everest, that'd be too overwhelming for them.
Yeah.
But if I put them in the sweet spot where I went, right, this wall now is just a little bit above where you are or where you were last time. So a little bit more challenging. That level of focus would be bang. That person would have to concentrate because it was challenging enough, but not so challenging that it was overwhelming and they couldn't do it, but not so easy where they could switch off and go through autopilot. If you're going through autopilot in life, and we all do, if we're making a cup of coffee or certain daily activities, we need a bit of autopilot. But if we're doing that through everything, we're essentially saying nothing in my day is giving me enough challenge and enough stimulus. And we don't have enough challenge and enough stimulus, you will get fucking bored.
Yeah.
We need something in our career, in our lives, in our relationships to stimulate us to, in my bias would be to grow and to develop. Life is a lot more rewarding and fulfilling when we have that. So the right level of challenge.
You'd say the right level of challenge made me think about when I used to play football when I was younger. And actually, if you were smashing a team like 10-11-1, actually gets fucking boring.
Yeah.
And if you're getting smashed 10-11-1, that gets boring even quicker.
Great example.
But you don't focus on either of them. But that challenge that's, it's a tight game where you have to stay, because if you're getting smashed 11-1, you don't need to focus, mate. Yeah. But if it's but if you're like that,
come boys, 0-0 half time. Yeah. No, mate, we fucking lost this one.
Our captain used to say. I mean, we were quite a good team, so we didn't get, for our area, not like fucking like obviously pro levels. For our area, but every now and then in the cup we'd get slightly further and we'd play a fucking good team. And we did get smashed once, like 13-1 or something. And we were like 7-0 down for half time. I was like, right boys, 0-0. So it's not 0-0.
Mate. Yeah.
It's not.
Don't fucking kid yourself, mate.
But when that team that's about your level,
yeah,
hopefully in your league, the teams are about your level. First of all, it's not rewarding smashing teams 12-1 every week. It gets boring. And it's definitely not rewarding getting smashed 12-1 every week. But that team that was about your standard, but it was a difficult game. You had to focus, otherwise you would have lost. And then when you beat them, you feel good. You feel like you had to focus, you had to put everything into it, and then it feels like you've overcome something. It's same in gaming as well. If you're same thing, if you're just smashing and you put it on too easy a level, which on FIFA you put it on too easy a level and it gets boring. And if you put it on too hard level, you can't even get the ball, it's boring. But if you find that's roughly about the same challenge, that's the first thing that popped into my head.
All great examples, mate.
Yeah.
Sport's a fantastic example. You mentioned working with clients, just that right level of challenge. And that really will help you focus, but you need the other things as well. You need to give a shit about it, and you need to try and do your best to clear as many distractions as possible. But there's a cost to not being focused. There is a cost, and I think on an individual level and a societal level, and one that I can relate to personally, I think a little bit, and I think we're all getting worse at, is cognitive patience. So being able to really just be a bit calmer, spend some time on trying to absorb information a bit more deeply.
Yeah.
And going to go back to social media again, we've all done it, I know I have. or even just a blog post. It might not even be a social media post. I'm trying to kind of go through it too quickly, and I'm always seeing how many pages there are. I'm like, I need to skim through it. And there's a time and a place where maybe I do need to skim and just pull out the basic points. But if I want to gather depth of knowledge in an area, which is something I'm sort of banging on about today, I need to take the time for that. And I'm going to need to develop a bit of patience, if I'm honest. I don't think I'm a particularly patient person anyway. And I think my patience is becoming less and less because I'm having these surface level interactions with social media. So it's something I've reflected on, and it is something that came up in the book as well about how we're becoming less and less patient.
Yeah, I find myself doing that on social media. Not that I'm really there. I'm not necessarily there for gaining knowledge. Although there will be some people that I do follow that I think put out really good stuff.
It's probably not the best place. It's definitely not the best place to gather depth in knowledge.
Unless you're watching our page.
Of course, yeah. And then you get fucking knowledge bombs left, right, and
Value
centre.
City. But when I sometimes I'll start. If someone's put, I suppose if it's going to catch my eye, it might be a mechanics post, and they put like a carousel together
because you care about it.
Yeah, but then I read the first one, and as I get to about the 10th, I've lost patience.
Really,
yeah. I don't even care. I don't even care to follow the. First of all, I suppose in most contexts I'll probably understand it and get it. Yeah. Not that I know it, but I'll be able to follow because I'd like to think from teaching I can understand it. But sometimes I've just lost patience. Like by the time it's just boring me, I suppose, as you get
maybe because it's not challenging enough.
Well, that's true.
Because you know the subject pretty well. You're like, I know where these are going. Really,
yeah.
I can know it's not stimulating you enough. So you're thinking, why should
I don't
really
find carousels that stimulating anyway.
No,
as a way of learning.
Personal thing as well.
That's why ours aren't carousels.
No, we don't do any doing.
I'm fucked.
No.
That's why we do videos.
Yeah.
Because I prefer consuming it that way.
Yeah.
So I prefer teaching that way.
Yeah.
So that's going to suit us best.
And we can't do carousels.
And I thought, fuck me, it must take hours.
Canva.
Fucking hours.
Fucking hell, mate. Don't get me on that.
Talk about fucking focus.
But that's a good example.
Yeah.
The reason I can't do anything like that
is because focus on it.
I'm shit at it.
Yeah.
So it's almost overwhelming for me. I don't care about it. It doesn't interest me.
But you don't consume your information that way. Do you consume information through carousels?
Not really, mate. No. No. I mean, I said you made a good point. Social media isn't really a great example of consuming depth of information. But there'll be some people you do want to follow and you care about what they've got to say. And I do think, am I going to read this?
Yeah.
Am I going to read this post or am I not? And when I'm in this in-between space, it's almost a bit pointless. I'm skimming through it, I haven't got anything out of it, rather than at least read it, James.
Yeah.
Or don't.
Yeah.
Read it or don't
Yeah.
in between places. And, it's a mistake that I think I sometimes make. I was going to bring up a point of what you were saying there, mate, and I've lost my train of thought of what you were talking about.
Don't do carousels because we don't like them.
That's it, with the Canva thing. That's what
Yeah.
it was. It's a good personal example of, I just don't want to get good at it, if I'm honest. And I know some people are naturally drawn to it. And we see some people who are really good at that stuff, don't we, Ryan? It's not me, it's not you. And it's probably never going to be. So, and that's okay.
But you don't like... I don't even enjoy... So even if someone puts a good carousel together...
Yeah.
And it's something I'm interested in, I still don't enjoy that form of content. That's just for me.
Yeah.
So because I don't enjoy that form of content, I'm not going to produce that form of content. That's not to say my way's right, but I'm not going to enjoy producing it. Whereas I do like doing videos.
That's a good point, isn't it?
I do like, obviously we take clips from this where we're videoing, and because we both prefer that way of learning, we both enjoy doing it, we're going to come across better than that.
And it's sustainable.
Like
if you're doing anything now that you're fucking hating, and you're just feel like you're kind of grinding yourself to do it to that level, either don't do it or delegate it or whatever, because you're not going to keep it going. It could be like a client and you've got them on a training program and they're like, how are you getting on? They're like, to be honest, we're just not enjoying it.
Yeah.
You can keep telling them to keep doing it, but they're missing sessions and they're not getting on with it. You're like, well, we need to come up with a middle ground, a program you're at least going to enjoy so it's sustainable. Because if nothing's sustainable, there's no good long-term outcomes. And you could use social media as an example for personal trainers putting content out there. Is the content in line with who you are and the type of content you like to produce?
Yeah.
The stuff that we do, we like making videos, we like talking, but fucking hate doing technology.
And that's not to say people that... Because there'll be people that love that form of content.
Oh, brilliant.
And it's not to say we're not going to produce... Well, we're not going to produce that.
I'll be honest. It's not happening.
Yeah. But where was I going with that? Yeah, so it's not that people can't get a lot from that, because I'm sure there's lots of people that do really enjoy that form of content and flicking, and then sort of each page builds up on top of another. But if you don't enjoy it, it's not going to be sustainable. And sustainable and consistency overrides motivation every day of the week, doesn't it?
It really does, mate. So yeah, cognitive patience is something that we can start to sort of lose. And I think I alluded to this earlier, but I'm going to kind of expand on it. Is if we're thinking about things we want to gather depth of knowledge in, complex things. And I think about human beings, we're complex. If we haven't developed the skill of being focused and we're always getting distracted and we're having constant surface level conversations, how can I ever start to understand that person better and their context and their situation? How can I ever start to empathise more unless I can really fine tune or become more engaged in what they're saying? And we've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but it's such an important skill for human connection. But I think we're often losing human connection. Maybe technology is part of it, but also we're just shit at really engaging in what someone's saying and really paying attention. And then the less we do it, the less good we get. So I think it's affecting us maybe as coaches, and I think it's affecting us just as human beings in our relationships as well. I think it's a big cost to lack of focus there.
It's a funny one with that because people blame technology, but that would be to suggest that 100 years ago people were really good at really engaging. I don't know if they are or not, but from the way that people talk from bygone eras, I don't think they were. So it's an interesting one. Has technology actually removed the ability for good, deep, meaningful conversation across the board? There will always be people that are good at that, but across the board, or actually has the fact that there's technology now not really changed that? We weren't very fucking good at it in the first place.
I mean, it's a fascinating one.
It's an
You've got to
interesting
look
thought.
at different sides. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to kind of contradict what I was saying earlier about us losing distraction, because we are,
Yeah.
and there's a correlation with technology, but correlation isn't always a total causation, is it?
No.
Is it? So I think it's a very complex subject as to why. I definitely wouldn't blame one thing like,
No.
oh, it's all Instagram's fault, or it's all our phone's fault, or it's all the internet's fault. I think it's far more complex than that. But I think that's part of a very complex puzzle and pie. But I wouldn't want to take a reductionist approach, mate.
It's that idea,
You know,
isn't it?
this is what we're talking about now. Ironically, is a complex subject. So I wouldn't want to try and make this in a reductionist way. I've listened to some stuff on it. I've thought deeply about it.
Yeah.
I've listened to a bit of a book on it. I'm not a fucking expert on focus.
No, but it's that thing
Do you know what I
around
mean?
technology, isn't it? Because you hear it everywhere. Well, technology stopping people have really deep, meaningful conversations. Well, were they before technology?
Also, are we not taking? We have to take some responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, what we don't want to be doing is parking that and shifting the responsibility. So we need to. And in the book, it talks about this. I feel like it's acknowledging and accepting and empathising for how our current world is. That would be a little bit deluded if we didn't. But also, I feel like there has to be a side of responsibility in the individual. Kind of, we need a little bit of both. See how the world and the environment is influencing us, but also go, okay, I'm being influenced. What's the type of life I want? I don't just have to give up to that. I can still take positive steps, and kind of we need a bit of both, I think. But these are actually quite big, complex subjects, aren't they?
Responsibility is my favourite thing.
Yeah, we like that one, don't we?
In terms of taking full responsibility for yourself and
Well,
the
your
things you
actions,
want,
yeah.
and your actions, the things you want to do. And it's so easy. See, and as I become more aware of it, and obviously we all do it, but as I become more aware of it, and it's almost like a societal thing. This constant want to strip responsibility away from people, just say it's not your fault, it's just the way it is. It's got nothing to do with you. It's just this, it's just that, and actually remove responsibility for people. Which, as I've said before, when I've thought about this, I think it's disempowering, because the moment you say it's not your responsibility, that's meaning you can't do anything about it. And the moment you say it is your responsibility, that gives you. I found that as an important. Go, well, if it is my responsibility, and I'm unhappy with something, then there's something I can do about this. And it's I remember it was the obesity documentary, and I felt that what it was doing was it was trying to strip everyone of any responsibility they could to make some positive changes for themselves.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, actually, that's a negative. Like,
Yeah.
if you're by us saying, look, it's not creating a judgment on how you're in the position you've got to. What it's saying is, we got here how we got here. Now let's understand how we can move forward from this, and you have the power to be able to make some changes yourself. I think that's a really positive thing, versus it's nothing to do with you while you're here. You're stuck here. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, that's disempowering.
Yeah.
So I think being able to take responsibility for things is really empowering.
Yeah, it is. It's funny, mate. I was being rude there, looking at my phone, but I was trying to find a quote.
That's right, mate. I'm used to it.
Yeah, I was trying to find
Give
a
us the
quote.
focus chat.
Yeah. Fuck off, Dan. Bore the fuck out of me, mate. All right. I wish I could bring up the quote. It was from one of our favourite authors, Man's Search for Meaning.
Ah,
I forgot his name.
Victor Frankl.
Victor Frankl. It's a really good Victor Frankl quote, and I really can't remember it. I did a post on it a while ago, but essentially, I'm going to paraphrase it really badly. But the quote is saying, when we're in a situation that we can't change, we're forced to change ourselves. And that is very loosely paraphrased. But what I drew out from that quote from Viktor Frankl was, there's lots of things in life we can't change. Technology, this is a great example. So we're forced to change ourselves on an individual level. And part of changing ourselves is, as you're alluding to there, is taking responsibility for ourselves and our actions. And it's very easy to become disempowering by going, it's the world. Well, we can't change a lot of things in the world. We can't change all of our environment. So we have to look in on ourselves. And I think that's really important. I really wish I could find that.
But also taking... Google it.
Yeah.
But also taking responsibility for the things you can take responsibility for. So control the controllables, right? The things you can take control of, take control of. It's one of the things that when I feel sort of most anxious, I suppose, as an average on a week to week, if I was to, it'd be where I feel out of control, where I feel like I haven't got enough time to get everything done, and I don't have enough time to get back to the things I need to get to. So that I feel like that's out of control. That I find quite stressful. But if I feel in control of my week, so let's say I've even got a few less clients in, that's opened up a few hours, which means I can get all the stuff, the administration stuff, my study, everything around my week, I can actually get done. I feel like I've got good time to do it. I suppose I'm at a slightly different point in my career, but that's almost like a positive. It's like I have more time to do the things I really want to do, and I'll get to the end of the week, and it's not going, I did this many sessions this week, therefore it was a successful week. It was, I feel on top of everything. I've done some good study in the areas I want to study. I felt like I've had some breathing space. So I'd feel good at the end of that week versus I've done 50 sessions, so the bank account's going to look better.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the quote to get it in a second. But actually, two things that while I'm on that wavelength is time. We all do it. Our clients do it. I didn't have time. Well, we didn't take the responsibility to make and find time. Yeah. Ultimately, it's a tough pill to swallow. It is. Understand that life and world is busy. So time being a big one. And I can't remember the other point that you're making there as well, mate.
So many, mate.
So many good points. But that's a big one. So yeah, organising your day. Success as well. Like what a successful week looks like.
Yeah. Should
be multifaceted. It's quite healthy to go, if you're just basing, and I had a chat with a coach about this the other day actually, so it's a good point you make, of trainers, and I was guilty of this. My week and my world was, the success of it was based upon how many session numbers I did. And now I'm like, that is one very, very small part of the big puzzle of, I've got lots of things, quality time with my daughter, how's my exercise, how's my well-being, how's my mental health, what's my nutrition like? Well, all these lots
of things.
Win? Did Man United win?
Which is more yes than no these
out
days.
Out of my control, but it still makes me feel good. All these things though. So looking at success globally, I think as well, not just session numbers and the time element. Two really good points, mate. Well, I'm on it. So Viktor Frankl's quote was, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And I really like that, and I know I did a really shit job at paraphrasing that earlier. That's why I wanted to get it up, thanks to Google. But that's it, we are challenged to change ourselves. I love the words he's used there as well. Challenged to change. So change isn't easy. Responsibility isn't easy. It is a challenge. But, you know, there's plenty of things that we are not able to change in situations in life. You will be dealt certain cards and certain challenges in life that are fucking horrible and out of your control. But you do get to choose your response, and that's a big narrative of Viktor Frankl's book, isn't it? Is between kind of exposure to something, between the trigger and the response, there is a space, and we do get to decide in what we do. It might not feel like it at times, but it is, using the word again, mate, our responsibility.
Well, in the most extreme of examples, obviously, with that one, in terms of being a Holocaust survivor, and even in that, when he was stripped of everything, he still had control of his mind. What did he have control over? And that was the one thing in that situation that he had control over. It's a powerful book. Anyone that hasn't read it should definitely read it.
Yeah, it's one of our favourite ones.
Yeah,
isn't
well, it's
it?
half autobiography. It's not just the Holocaust. I think
both.
it's biography, and then he moves into his actual scientific work as well.
Which moves into logotherapy and stuff.
So it's a brilliant book and should be read.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points just kind of finish off on. Something I thought more about as well is creativity. And we mentioned just off air, didn't we, about when you're on holiday and your brain's able to be a bit more relaxed, a bit calmer, a bit less distracted. How you start to kind of tap into different parts of your brain and your mind. And holiday could be an example. I mentioned just a couple of days ago, work was a bit quieter, so I went a nice hour walk. And something that I probably don't do enough of is get out for a longer period of time. It's more just short walks. But when I did it allowed my brain to think a bit clearer. The sun was shining. I was able to really engage in an audiobook, like fully absorb it. And yeah, it allowed me to be a bit more creative. It allowed me to get information in, process it in my own way, sort of figure it out for myself rather than go, oh, information, chuck it out. Information, chuck it out. It's information comes in, I process it, I figure it out in my own brain, and then I'm able to kind of throw it out or educate others in an authentic way rather than just regurgitating what I've heard.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's part of being creative. And I think sometimes in the industry I feel like we're losing this creativity because it is very fast paced, it's very reactive, it's very surface level, and that sounds a bit judgmental, but I do see that quite often. We're losing this creativity, and sometimes when you're able to think and challenge yourself and be focused, and you use an exercise example, you're able to be quite creative.
Yeah.
No one's actually told you that thing, but you've thought for yourself and gone, well, hang on, I understand mechanics here, I can train the knees in different ranges. That was you being creative. And you walked out of that session going, bang, but you gave yourself the opportunity to be able to sort of do that. So time and space, sometimes less is more. I don't want to go on a walk and go and listen to a podcast and 2 books. It's just one book. If I'm not feeling up to it, I'll pause it and just walk in silence.
Yeah.
And I found that's more of a productive way for me to absorb information.
Yeah.
So yeah, being creative, mate, is something I'm trying to get more into.
Yeah. I always use the example of when I'm on holiday. When I'm on holiday, I find I have loads of ideas because your brain's just able to just relax. You're not thinking about just like say go. What am I doing in the next hour? What am I doing the next day? Hit my little to-do list that I have. Actually, you have time to be free, and so that really helps. That's a good podcast, mate. That.
Yeah, I think one final thing I'll finish off on is for focus, just being aware of your current state and health. I think sometimes it's hard to focus because you've got a lot of shit going on and you're quite stressed, and it might be more of a survival state, and that might be for you or your clients. But when we can start to build those foundational pillars, and it's easy for them to slip off just 5, 10, 15%. It could be your nutrition, could be your exercise, could be your sleep, could be your stress management. It's very hard to be focused. I'm not saying we have to get this all optimal and perfect because optimal and perfect probably doesn't exist. But when we can just put a little bit more focus into it, I think we get so much more out of it. And I've noticed that if I get my sleep a little bit better and make a few tweaks to my lifestyle, I find my brain is able to focus better. That's just a final point. But I hope you guys listening got some value out of it. I feel like it's a really important subject and something that will probably come up in future podcasts as well.
And also, with any of that, just start. Which sounds bonkers. How do you start? How do you run a marathon? Well, you start by putting one foot in front of the other. The amount of times when I procrastinated with a book or something like that, it's just like, just start.
Yeah.
Just create half an hour and start reading. And then create half an hour 2 days later and just read. The amount of things that can be done if you just get going rather than sort of waiting for the perfect time or the perfect moment. It's like, just create a space. If you want to start reading a book or non-fiction book, fiction book,
Yeah.
Pick a book.
Pick a book.
Pick a book. Yeah. Find a time of day that works best for you. It might be your lunch break. Might be when you wake up in the morning. It might be like me, just before you go to bed. Or that's part of my evening routine. Just start. And I'm always surprised at how much happens when you just start doing it.
It's the advice you give your clients.
Yeah.
Your client said, you know what, Dan, I'm really struggling to train and exercise. I don't feel motivated. You're like, just walk through those doors of the gym.
Yeah.
Walk through those doors of the gym. And once you start going, okay, some sessions might be better than others, but you're all right.
You're going to crack on, right?
And it is, you just want your clients to get into the gym.
Just start.
Just get those running shoes on and just start running around the block. And as soon as you start running, you'll be fine. It's the same for all these things. So this is obviously easy advice to give, but it's very true, mate.
It is.
Don't overwhelm yourself. Just think to yourself, I'm just going to put that podcast on and see what happens. I'm just going to open that book and see what happens. As you said earlier, don't put so much pressure on yourself. And it's amazing how your brain can start to kind of open up and become a bit more creative and hopefully a bit more focused.
Joe Rogan says about that. He talks about, I don't think he's got this stat from anywhere, but it's like it just says 90% of success is just showing up. Those people that just show up and do it consistently for a long period of time, but that just show up. One of my clients says to herself when she goes to train on her own, she's like, the way she does it, she's like, I'm going to go, and then if it's as bad as I think it's going to be, I'll leave. No one's making me stay there. She's never left. So once she's there, but that's the narrative she's given herself. And it's amazing. Just start. And because you can overthink it, you can procrastinate, and you can find the perfect time. Create half an hour tomorrow and start reading. You'll be surprised at how that starts to gain momentum once you push the snowball down the hill. Next week we have a guest. We have Mr. Christian Lawala, who is one of our trainers at TWPT. Very deep and insightful thinker. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a long one, mate.
Thinking of focus and deep thinking.
Yeah, this is going to be one.
This is actually a good podcast to have before that.
Yeah.
He's someone who's great at taking a step back, being very calm. He's probably one of the most laid back people I've met.
Chill, mate.
Very
Fully chill,
But
yeah.
he is a deeper thinker. He's someone who can sort of see things through different lenses and get different perspectives.
We've both been on his podcast as well.
Yeah, we have.
So it's cool, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be coming out normal time though, because we're just doing it at mine. So that'll come out next Friday anyway. So it's not a later one. So guys, hope you enjoyed that.
Thanks for listening.
Register on the seminars.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, we're shit at this, aren't we? And if you guys want to learn more about psychology, communication, and mechanics, most importantly, then come to, if you register your interest for our seminars on either of our Instagram pages or on the PT Education one, and we've just started to ping some emails out to people actually recently, just giving them an update, and we'll get dates out for that soon. Awesome. Catch you next week.